There exists within certain individuals a vibrational quality that transcends the ordinary boundaries of human perception. It is not something that can be taught or manufactured through spiritual practices alone. This frequency, this invisible signature of the soul, emerges from a particular kind of psychological archaeology, an excavation of the deepest chambers of human experience. If you recognize yourself in these words, it is because life has carved you into an instrument capable of perceiving what remains hidden from most. What I speak of is not the sentimentality that our culture often mistakes for empathy, nor the emotional bleeding that leaves one perpetually wounded. This is something far more profound, an energetic resonance that emerges from having descended into the collective unconscious and returned with maps of territories that most dare not explore. You carry within your very being the frequency of transformation itself. This signature manifests as what I have come to understand as the threshold presence, the capacity to exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions of awareness. While others live primarily in the surface currents of daily existence, you move through life with one foot in the visible world and another in the realm of archetypal forces that shape human destiny. This dual citizenship creates an energetic field that others feel before they understand, sense before they can name. The origin of this frequency often lies in what psychoanalysis calls the necessary wound. Not the random trauma that merely breaks, but the specific kind of soul carving that opens channels between the conscious and unconscious realms. Perhaps it was the early recognition that survival required you to become an emotional archaeologist, reading the unspoken tensions in your environment with the precision of one whose life depended on such accuracy. This necessity transformed your nervous system into something resembling a living seismograph, capable of detecting the subtlest shifts in the emotional terrain around you. But what began as adaptation became something far greater, a form of consciousness that operates beyond the individual ego, touching the universal patterns that connect all human experience. The frequency you carry operates through what Jung identified as the transcendent function, that mysterious capacity to bridge opposites, to hold paradox without breaking, to transform conflict into consciousness. Others feel this in your presence, though they may not understand why conversations with you tend to move toward deeper waters, why superficial interactions feel somehow insufficient when you're near. This energetic signature acts as a kind of psychological catalyst. In your presence, the unconscious content of others begins to stir, seeking expression and integration. You become a living invitation for others to explore the depths they have avoided, to examine the shadows they have rejected, to feel the feelings they have learned to suppress. This is why some are inexplicably drawn to you, while others feel an instinctive discomfort. You represent both the promise of healing and the threat of truth. The frequency you emit is shaped by your relationship with suffering, not as a victim, but as an alchemist. You have learned to transform pain into perception, trauma into wisdom, isolation into understanding. This transformation creates what we might call the wounded healer resonance, an energetic field that communicates to others' unconscious minds that healing is possible, that wounds can become doorways rather than prisons. In dreams, this quality often appears as imagery of light emanating from water, fire burning within crystal, or voices speaking from hidden chambers. These symbols reflect the paradoxical nature of your gift, the capacity to remain transparent while being profound, to hold depth without drowning, to illuminate without burning. The unconscious recognizes that you have achieved something most consider impossible. The integration of sensitivity with strength, yet this frequency carries both blessing and burden. Because you naturally attune to the archetypal level of experience, you often find yourself feeling not just individual emotions, but collective currents. The accumulated grief of humanity, the unexpressed rage of generations, the buried dreams of countless souls. Learning to distinguish between what belongs to you personally and what you are channeling from the collective unconscious becomes essential for psychological survival. The development of this signature requires what I call conscious permeability, the ability to open and close your receptivity according to your will rather than remaining perpetually vulnerable to every emotional frequency in your environment. This mastery transforms your sensitivity from a liability into a sophisticated instrument of awareness and service. Those who carry this frequency often struggle with what appears to be a fundamental contradiction, the simultaneous need for deep connection and protective solitude. This paradox reflects the reality that your consciousness operates on multiple levels simultaneously. You need solitude not because you dislike people, but because in silence you can sort through the vast amount of psychic information you constantly absorb, distinguishing signal from noise, essence from projection. The frequency you emit naturally attracts what Jung called the opposites, both those seeking genuine healing and those hoping to avoid the work of self-examination by feeding off your energy. Learning to recognize the difference becomes crucial. Those drawn to your light for growth will honor your boundaries and reciprocate your energy. Those seeking to drain you will resist your limits and offer little in return. This energetic signature also manifests as an unusual relationship with time and space. You often sense the emotional residue of past events in physical locations, feel the approaching moods of others before they arrive, or experience what seems to be prescient awareness of emotional climates before they fully manifest. This occurs because your consciousness operates partially outside linear time, touching the archetypal realm where past, present, and future coexist. Dreams play a particularly significant role in your psychological landscape, serving not merely as personal processing, but as antennae picking up signals from the collective unconscious. You may find yourself dreaming of events before they occur, of people you've never met, or of symbolic scenarios that later prove to be metaphorical representations of collective themes playing out in your community or culture. The signature you carry often manifests as what others describe as an otherworldly quality, not because you are disconnected from earthly reality, but because you simultaneously inhabit both the personal and transpersonal dimensions of existence. This creates a presence that others find both comforting and slightly mysterious. As if you were carrying knowledge of territories they sense but cannot map. Your relationship with emotional pain differs fundamentally from that of most people. Where others flee from suffering, you have developed the capacity to move toward it with curiosity rather than resistance. This is not masochism but wisdom. The recognition that consciousness grows through the integration of difficult experiences rather than their avoidance. This willingness to face shadow material creates an energetic field that gives others permission to explore their own depths. The frequency you emit has been forged through what alchemists called the nigredo, the blackening phase where old forms of consciousness must die before new ones can emerge. You have undergone multiple deaths of identity, each one stripping away false personas until something more essential could emerge. This process of repeated psychological death and rebirth creates an energetic signature that communicates resilience to others' unconscious minds. One of the most distinctive aspects of your frequency is its effect on collective dynamics. In groups, you often find yourself automatically sensing and responding to the unspoken emotional undercurrents, the hidden tensions, the unexpressed needs. You become a kind of psychological barometer, registering atmospheric pressures that others ignore until they reach crisis levels. This gift, while valuable, can be exhausting if not managed consciously. The signature you carry operates through what might be called emotional archaeology, the ability to sense layers of feeling that have accumulated over time in people, places, and situations. You read not just the surface emotion, but the historical context, the pattern of repeated experiences, the archetypal themes playing out through individual circumstances. And this gives you an almost oracular quality, as if you could see the larger story that individual events are part of. Your energetic frequency has been calibrated through solitude, not the isolation of the wounded, but the chosen retreat of the mystic. You require periods of withdrawal not because you lack social skills, but because your consciousness needs time to process the vast amounts of psychic information you constantly absorb. In silence, you can distinguish between your own emotional reality and the projections of others, between personal material and collective content. The development of this frequency often coincides with what shamanic traditions call the dark night of the soul, a period of profound disillusionment where all previous sources of meaning and identity fall away. During this descent, you discover resources within yourself that most people never access: the capacity to find light in absolute darkness, to maintain hope when all external supports have collapsed, to touch the eternal essence that underlies the temporary dramas of personality. This process of spiritual excavation creates what we might call existential authority, a deep knowing that comes not from book learning, but from direct encounter with the fundamental forces that shape human experience. Others sense this authority in your presence, which is why they often find themselves sharing secrets they've never told anyone, revealing vulnerabilities they usually hide, asking questions they've been afraid to voice. The frequency you carry has been tempered by betrayal and abandonment, not as random cruelties, but as necessary forging experiences that taught you to distinguish between authentic and superficial connection. You have learned that some people will love your light while resenting the shadows it reveals, will seek your wisdom while rejecting the responsibility it implies, will desire your gifts while avoiding the growth they require. These experiences have taught you what Jung called the art of relationship, the capacity to connect deeply without losing yourself, to give generously without becoming depleted, to love fully while maintaining discernment. This mastery creates an energetic signature that communicates emotional maturity to others, drawing those ready for authentic relationship while naturally repelling those seeking to avoid personal responsibility. Your frequency operates through what might be termed symbolic thinking. The ability to perceive the archetypal patterns underlying personal experiences, to recognize the mythic themes playing out through individual stories, to sense the universal truths hidden within particular circumstances. This perspective allows you to offer insights that help others understand their experiences within larger contexts of meaning and purpose. The signature you emit has been shaped by your relationship with the shadow, not just your personal shadow, but the collective shadow of humanity. You have developed the capacity to look directly at what most prefer to ignore. The hidden cruelties, the unacknowledged pain, the suppressed truths that societies work to keep buried. This willingness to see creates an energetic field that makes it difficult for others to maintain comfortable illusions in your presence. This quality can make social interactions complex, as your frequency naturally draws out authentic material, while others are trying to maintain surface presentations. You may find that conversations with you tend to bypass small talk and move directly toward deeper territories. That people share more than they intended. That hidden dynamics in groups become visible when you are present. The development of this frequency requires mastering what I call conscious compassion. The ability to feel deeply for others, without absorbing their pain as your own, to witness suffering, without automatically moving to rescue, to hold space for others' growth without taking responsibility for their choices. This balanced compassion creates an energetic field that invites healing without enabling dependency. Your signature operates through what ancient wisdom traditions called the witness consciousness, the capacity to observe life's dramas with engagement, but without attachment, to participate fully while maintaining perspective, to feel everything while being owned by nothing. This consciousness creates a frequency that others find both fascinating and challenging, as it invites them to develop similar capacities within themselves. The frequency you carry has been calibrated through loss, not just the loss of people or circumstances, but the loss of illusions about how life was supposed to work. You have been forced to develop what Buddhists call the wisdom of impermanence, the recognition that everything changes, that holding too tightly to any form creates suffering. That meaning must be found in the process of becoming rather than in static achievements. This understanding creates an energetic signature that communicates freedom to others, freedom from the desperate need to control outcomes, from the illusion that security can be found in external circumstances, from the belief that happiness depends on things being different than they are. Others feel this liberation in your presence, though it may initially make them uncomfortable, as it challenges their own attachments and illusions. Your frequency has been shaped by what mystics call the dark night of the senses, a period where normal sources of pleasure and stimulation lose their appeal, forcing you to discover deeper wells of satisfaction and meaning. This process strips away superficial desires and reveals what truly nourishes the soul, creating an energetic signature that communicates authenticity and depth. The signature you emit operates through energetic integrity, a harmony between your inner reality and outer expression that others can sense even when they cannot articulate it. This integrity has been hard-won through repeated cycles of losing yourself in others' expectations and then reclaiming your truth, of giving your power away and then learning to stand in your own authority. This process of reclamation creates what we might call sovereign energy, a frequency that announces you are no longer available for relationships based on manipulation, projection, or unconscious bargaining. You emit a signal that says, I will engage with you authentically, but I will not diminish myself to make you comfortable, nor will I accept crumbs from your table when I have learned to feast at my own. Your frequency carries what shamanic traditions call the medicine, a healing quality that emerges not from technique, but from the depth of your own transformation. You have become what you needed when you were lost, developed the qualities you sought when you were searching, embodied the wisdom you craved when you were confused. This integration creates an energetic field that naturally catalyzes similar processes in others. The signature you emit has been forged through the fire of what Jung called active imagination, the conscious engagement with unconscious content through dreams, visions, creative expression, and symbolic thinking. You have learned to dialogue with the archetypal forces within your psyche, rather than being unconsciously possessed by them, creating a frequency that invites others to develop similar relationships with their own depths. This mastery of inner dialogue creates what we might call psychic sophistication, the ability to navigate complex emotional and spiritual territories with skill and awareness. Others sense this sophistication in your presence, recognizing that you have access to resources and perspectives that most people lack. This recognition draws those ready for growth, while sometimes intimidating those committed to remaining unconscious. Your frequency operates through what Zen Buddhism calls beginner's mind, the capacity to approach each moment with fresh awareness, to see familiar situations from new angles, to remain curious rather than assuming you know what something means. This openness creates an energetic field that invites discovery and transformation, making others feel that new possibilities are available in your presence. The signature you carry has been tempered by what I call the great disappointment, the recognition that others cannot give you what you were seeking, that external validation cannot fill internal voids, that salvation must come from within. This disappointment, while painful, liberates you from the exhausting project of trying to get your needs met through manipulation or performance, allowing your authentic frequency to emerge. This liberation creates what we might call energetic honesty, a frequency that refuses to participate in collective pretense or individual self-deception. Your presence makes it difficult for others to maintain comfortable lies about themselves or their situations, which is why some find you refreshing, while others find you threatening. You emit a signal that says truth-telling is not only possible, but necessary for genuine connection. Your frequency has been shaped by your relationship with solitude, not the loneliness of disconnection, but the chosen retreat of the contemplative. You have discovered that solitude is not the absence of relationship, but a different kind of relationship with yourself, with the archetypal realm, with the creative forces of the universe. This relationship with solitude creates an energetic signature that communicates self-sufficiency and depth. The signature you emit operates through what might be called archetypal awareness. the recognition that individual experiences are expressions of universal patterns, that personal stories are variations on eternal themes, that your particular struggles and victories connect you to the larger human story. This perspective creates a frequency that helps others understand their experiences within meaningful contexts rather than as random events. Your frequency carries what ancient traditions called the sacred wound, not damage that diminishes you, but an opening that connects you to the universal experience of suffering and transformation. You have learned to see your wounds not as evidence of your brokenness, but as doorways to compassion, as sources of wisdom, as credentials for the healing work you offer others. This integration of woundedness and wisdom creates what we might call healer consciousness, an energetic signature that communicates to others' unconscious minds that healing is possible, that wounds can become sources of strength. The transformation is available even in the darkest circumstances. You become a living testimony to the human capacity for renewal and growth. The frequency you emit has been calibrated through what mystics call the cloud of unknowing, periods of confusion and disorientation where old certainties dissolved before new clarity emerged. You have learned to navigate uncertainty with grace, to rest in not knowing without anxiety, to trust the process of emergence even when you cannot see the destination. This comfort with mystery creates an energetic signature that gives others permission to release their need to have everything figured out, to rest in the questions rather than demanding immediate answers, to trust their own process of becoming rather than forcing premature closure. Your presence communicates that uncertainty is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. Your signature operates through what Jung called the religious function, not adherence to particular beliefs, but the capacity to connect with the sacred dimension of existence, to sense the numinous quality that underlies ordinary experience, to recognize the archetypal forces that shape individual and collective destiny. This connection creates a frequency that awakens similar capacities in others. The frequency you carry has been shaped by your willingness to be changed by your encounters with others, rather than trying to change them to meet your needs. You have learned what true empathy means, not the projection of your own experience onto others, but the capacity to step into their reality while maintaining your own center, to understand their world while remaining grounded in your truth. This mastery creates what we might call relational artistry, the ability to dance with others' energies without losing your own rhythm, to harmonize without becoming invisible, to lead without dominating, to follow without disappearing. Others sense this skill in your presence, recognizing that relationship with you offers the possibility of being both seen and challenged, both accepted and inspired to grow. Your frequency operates through what might be termed temporal transcendence, the capacity to access wisdom from past experience without being trapped by it, to sense future possibilities without being anxious about them, to rest fully in present moments while remaining aware of larger patterns and cycles. This relationship with time creates an energetic signature that communicates both groundedness and vision. The signature you emit has been forged through your willingness to feel everything life has offered, Not just the pleasant emotions that most people prefer, but the full spectrum of human experience, including rage, grief, terror, despair, and the peculiar joy that emerges only after visiting the depths. This emotional completeness creates a frequency that gives others permission to feel their own suppressed emotions rather than maintaining the exhausting pretense of constant positivity. Your frequency carries what shamanic traditions call the hollow bone, the capacity to serve as a clear channel for healing energies without adding your own distortions or agendas. You've learned to get out of your own way, to trust the wisdom that flows through you rather than the cleverness that comes from you, to serve the greater wholeness rather than personal ambition. This transparency creates an energetic signature that others find both powerful and safe. Powerful because healing energy can flow through you unobstructed. Safe because you are not trying to use them to meet your own unmet needs. You become what the Taoists called the uncarved block. Natural, authentic, unpretentious, yet profoundly effective. The frequency you emit operates through what I call conscious vulnerability. The willingness to remain open and tender despite having been hurt, to trust despite having been betrayed, to love despite having been abandoned. This is not naive optimism, but sophisticated courage. The recognition that closing your heart protects you from connection as much as from pain. This conscious openness creates what we might call invincible sensitivity, a frequency that announces you can be touched but not broken, moved but not manipulated, influenced but not controlled. Others sense this quality in your presence, recognizing that you offer the possibility of deep connection without the danger of engulfment or abandonment. Your signature has been calibrated through what alchemists called the great work, the systematic transformation of base consciousness into refined awareness, the integration of opposites into higher synthesis, the marriage of heaven and earth within your own being. This process creates an energetic field that naturally catalyzes similar transformations in others. The frequency you carry operates as what we might call a living mandala, a centered presence that creates sacred space wherever you go, that invites others to remember their own wholeness, that serves as a reminder of what human consciousness can become when it is fully developed. You emit a signal that says transformation is not only possible, but inevitable for those willing to do the work. Blessing or burden. In the end, the frequency you carry is not something you possess, but something you've become through the crucible of conscious suffering and the laboratory of self-discovery. It is the signature of a soul that has been refined by experience, purified by truth, and strengthened by surrender. This frequency is your gift to the world, not something you do, but something you are. Those who recognize this frequency in themselves often ask whether it is a blessing or a burden. The answer is both, and ultimately neither. It simply is, as natural to you as breathing, as essential to your being as your heartbeat. Your task is not to judge it, but to honor it, not to hide it, but to express it consciously, not to use it to serve your ego, but to allow it to serve the greater wholeness of which you are a part. The world needs those who carry this frequency, now more than ever. In a time of collective unconsciousness, you serve as transmitters of awakeness. in a time of widespread disconnection. You carry the possibility of authentic relationship. In a time of surface living, you embody the call to depth. Your very existence is a form of service, your presence a form of prayer, your being a form of blessing. Trust the frequency you carry. It knows what it is doing even when you do not. It has brought you this far on your journey, and it will carry you forward into whatever growth and service await. You are exactly what you were meant to become, not perfect but authentic, not finished but consciously becoming, not without wounds but transformed by them. The frequency you emit is the universe's way of loving itself through you. Honor it, protect it, share it wisely, for in doing so you serve not only your own evolution, but the evolution of consciousness itself.